Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Annihilation, starring Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Gina Rodriguez, Tessa Thompson, Tuva Novotny, forgive me if I said that wrong, and Oscar Isaac, directed by Alex Garland. Now, I went to theaters for this, and I remember thinking, what a strange. It might be the same as when I get into the movie, but let's get into this, okay? Because there's a lot of questions I have for this, and I still don't even know if I can answer them right after watching this movie. Let's get into it. Lena, played by Natalie Portman, is interrogated by Lomax, played by Benedict Wong, about what happened to everyone that was involved in a mission that caused annihilation, which is the title of the movie. And we move on to Lena. Before the mission, was a teacher at a biology class to college students, which I wasn't buying Natalie Portman as a biology professor and as a biologist. And her co-worker Dan and his wife Sarah invite her to a barbecue at their house. This character I cannot relate with, as I'm not buying her as a biologist, just like I didn't buy her as a scientist in Thor, which I can't believe she's in the new film coming up later this summer. And her life is depressing, and the character is pathetic, for a lack of a better term. And I'm not going to buy her shooting a gun later in the film. Her husband, Kane, played by Oscar Isaac, arrives home after a year of either going missing or dead, which did confuse the shit out of me, as his character I can't get a read on either, as he's just a blank slate in this movie. But it's kind of a better performance than in Moon Knight, whereas here he sees someone outside the living room in their house, and all of a sudden he gets a stroke, which doesn't make much sense. But don't get me wrong, this is a pretty looking movie, but not as beautiful as last time with Ex Machina. While on the way to the hospital, Lena and Kane are taken by the police and goes to Area X, where she meets a psychologist named Dr. Ventress, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, as she interviews Lena, and as we learn, she served in the military with Kane, as he's ill, and Lena walks around and sees they're in a different world, and the cinematography is pretty, and this is a good-looking movie, as Lena goes with Dr. Ventress on the mission where they go to a lighthouse, where comes Annihilation, only to stay with Kane. And so far this plot is so fucking confusing me half to death. But it is a pretty world they're in, but this plot is frustrating me. I can, however, appreciate the cinematography in the movie, as again, it's a pretty movie. After a random scene of Lena and Kane in bed together, we meet Anya Thorensen, played by Gina Rodriguez, Cassie Shepard, played by Tuva Novotny, and Josie Reddick, played by Tessa Thompson, as they go with Dr. Ventress and Lena to the mission. And these other women, I enjoyed being around them more than being around Lena, as she's in all the movie, which is a real problem with the movie in general, as her only best performances of Portman's is The Professional, which confessionally I've never seen. But the ones I have seen her in that are better performances than here are in any other movies she has been in, are Garden State and V for Vendetta, but she cannot pull off a badass in my character, in my opinion. Like, look at those Star Wars prequels, for example. She was terrible in those movies. We get in the shimmer with Lena, Anya, Cassie, Josie, and Dr. Ventress, as they're armed up, and Lena doesn't remember anything from the night before without having a hangover, which makes no sense, as the writing is fine, I'll say at best, as they walk to the lighthouse, and they get to a swamp with flowers, which is rather odd, as this is so far a strange movie. For example, Josie getting pulled into the swamp by a crocodile, as it terrorizes the women, until Lena shoots at it dead, as it is a great shot, but unfortunately, I'm not buying Portman as a badass, like I said before, as she collects the crocodile teeth for biology reasons, which is also a great shot. And this movie has a handful of great shots right off the bat. They canoed the swamp, and Lena has a bruise and chats with Cassie about how she met and was married to Kane, and Cassie loses a daughter for cancer, and they arrive at a building, which I think is a plant, but it's military office, as they go inside and look for any survivors, but unfortunately, There isn't any, and we find a chip of a video that has Kane and Lena cutting something out of someone's stomach, as we see something moving inside his body, which I swear to God reminded me of Alien, with the newborn alien xenomorph around a human's stomach before it hatches open, and the scene was quite disturbing, and it made me think, what the fuck are they going after? And I don't even know what the fuck the movie is about. We get another flashback of Lena and Kane as he has no choice but to go back to the army a day early, and she wakes up as it was a dream sequence, which bothers me, and the movie is all over the place and very weird and confusing half to death. They hear a noise, and Cassie gets attacked and taken by a giant creature of some kind, and the women think about saving Cassie while Dr. Ventress wants to get the lighthouse, as Anya picks a fight with Lena as Dr. Ventress went crazy for the lighthouse. And this is where the characterization of these women begin to die down for me, as the movie wants to focus on how pretty it looks, not having the greatest characters in the entire goddamn movie. Lena sees some white deer looking things, which did look stunning, as she finds Cassie is dead as the kill was off screen, and that was a smart choice. And Anya is in a bad mood as they find camp and see some plants that look like humans, but they grew that way, I'll say. And Dr. Ventress says it doesn't make any sense, and I'm in agreement with her, but at the same time it is very confusing. We see Lena dreaming about sleeping with her co-worker, Dan, from the beginning of the movie, who was with his wife, as she was having an affair, and she wakes up to Anya holding a gun at her face and ties up Lena, Josie, and Dr. Ventress, and she comes up with a couple of theories, which she learns Lena is a liar, and the other two are tied up, as Dr. Ventress knew about it, and Josie not so much, as the creature that killed Cassie comes sounding like Cassie, to killing Anya, and while it attacks Lena and Dr. Ventress, killing it dead, and decides to leave, and eventually Josie gets out alive, and Lena tells her she should go, and she magically disappears, which is one hell of a downer for Tessa Thompson, as she'll be seen again with Natalie Portman in Thor: Love of Thunder. For the now disappearance of Josie was rather too fucking weird. Lena goes to the lighthouse to see crystal trees, as the image is good to look at as she enters inside the lighthouse, and here comes the moment the movie completely gets me into confusion. Lena finds a camera where the lighthouse was filmed at, and we see a bunch of random shit as she sees Kane blowing himself up while his double watches it. And Lena turns off the camera and goes in the hole where she finds Dr. Ventress as she annihilates herself, returning into something very fucking weird, as it looks like a plant, and it turns it into blood cells, which is something I just can't explain, as it's some kind of alien or something that can turn human, as Lena shoots at it and runs out, but is encountered by an alien that looks like a mirror, or Lena's double, let's say, and it knocks her down and acts like her and mimics her every move Lena makes, and falls down with her, and eventually she manages to get the fuck out of there by using a grenade to blow it up. At the end of it, Lomax is finished interrogating as she asks to see Kane, and Lena as she sees Kane, and he feels better, and not only are his eyes purple, but her eyes were purple too, as the movie cuts to credits, and I thought, what the fuck kind of an ending is that? As this climax was confusing as hell, and at the end of the day, it's just a weird fucking movie. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 4.6 out of 10. The movie is way too weird and confusing with not very good characterization, as these people need to be in better movies. Director Alex Garland has a vision of making this movie pretty, as it was unfortunately pretty forgettable in my opinion, as it confused me half to fucking death. I wish I could like this better than I did, but it was unfortunately I can't, but I'll give it this. It's a pretty looking movie that confuses the holy hell out of me at the end of the day. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Men. And until then, let's get weird.